24 hours ago, I was standing in this exact same driveway, certain I was about to lose my house to a pack of HOA wolves who'd finally sniffed blood. Now, as my diesel truck engine cools behind me, the only thing ticking louder than the motor is the fact that I own them. Not just my house, but the people who tried to ruin me. I mean, the only thing sweeter than revenge is the kind that comes with court stamps and prison sentences, you know what I mean? They thought they could steamroll some blue-collar electrician with legalese and threats. Miranda Ashworth, HOA president, even had the gall to say I didn't belong in a nice neighborhood. That's a hell of a mistake. The sound of my work boots on this gravel, that same gravel she strutted over, still rings in my ears. But now I'm holding the deed to her house. I wish I was making that up. What would you do if your own neighbors tried to steal your home with made-up rules and dirty lawyers? Drop a comment below, because what I found hiding in their paperwork didn't just save my house, it exposed a $1 million fraud ring and put 3 people behind bars. I'm Garrett Blackwood. 15 years back, I bought a half-acre lot out in what had become Willowbrook Estates, just outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. Back then, it was nothing but fields and a few houses you could count on one hand. Developer was flat broke, desperate to sell. I had some cash left, Sarah's life insurance. She was my wife of 26 years, lost her to cancer, and let me tell you, nothing prepares you for that kind of emptiness. But bills don't grieve, and neither does Oklahoma dirt. So I built our dream house with my own hands over 2 years of weekends. Sarah had sketched the floor plan on napkins, big kitchen window to the east, a workshop for my tools, space for grandkids we'd never have. Every wire, every 2x4, it was therapy, man. My neighbors called me crazy, working from sunup to sundown, but I didn't care. That house saved my life. When I moved in, there was no HOA, just decent folks who looked out for each other and minded their own. My old Ford truck, beat up, ladders strapped on, sat in my driveway where it belonged. Then, 3 years ago, Miranda showed up in a BMW, so white you'd need sunglasses. She had perfect blonde hair, fake nails, a smile you could see coming down the street. In 6 months, she's HOA president. Her platform? Raising property values and enforcing community standards. Translation: getting rid of people like me. First violation letter arrived on a Tuesday. Heavy cardstock, designer perfume, and the sound of her heels on my porch still makes me want to sandblast the front steps. Commercial vehicles aren't permitted, she says. I tell her, I never signed any covenants. She leans in with that cold smile. The covenants run with the land, Mr. Blackwood. You should have read them before you built. The way she said built, like I was cooking meth instead of framing a home. It got bad quick. My truck, my shed, a basketball hoop my nephew left out. Fines went from 50 to 100, then $500. Each letter had that same smirk, Miranda's signature in red ink, like blood. I confronted her once at the mailbox. She looked me up and down and said, "Some people just don't belong in nicer neighborhoods, Garrett. Maybe it's time you realize that." A month later, certified mail, 47 grand in fines and fees. 30 days to pay or they'd foreclose. My mortgage had maybe 60 left on a house worth nearly 4 times that, but the fine print said they could take it all. I called Miranda. She didn't bother pretending to care. You should have read the fine print, Garrett. Due diligence is part of homeownership. Sitting in that kitchen Sarah dreamed up, watching the sunrise she never got to see, I decided if they wanted a fight, they were getting one. Miranda didn't wait 30 days for victory. Within a week, she called an emergency board meeting. Apparently my work truck was a threat to property values. I could hear her stirring her latte and telling the other ladies, sometimes tough love is necessary. Here's the thing about bullies, they don't know the law as well as they think. I sat down at my kitchen table, laptop open, and learned more about Oklahoma HOA statutes in one weekend than most lawyers ever will. Sarah always said I was stubborn as a mule. She wasn't wrong. Turns out, Oklahoma law requires a minimum 30-day notice for HOA foreclosures. No shortcuts. Miranda's emergency 14-day timeline was about as legal as a $3 bill. Monday morning, I drove to the courthouse, paid $300 for an injunction, money I couldn't spare but cheaper than losing my house. Judge Morrison read my papers for maybe 5 minutes. Then he looks at Miranda. Did your board consult with counsel before trying to circumvent state law? She went from pale to purple. We were simply protecting the community's interests, she stammered. Judge wasn't having it. Gave me my extension, ordered the HOA to pay my filing fees. Walking out of there, hearing her heels echo down the marble, I started thinking maybe, just maybe I could win. But Miranda Ashworth isn't the type to lose gracefully. 2 days later, a city code guy shows up. Someone anonymously reported unpermitted electrical work. He found one violation, a 220V outlet I'd put in 8 years back without a permit. The permit? $15. The fine? $15,000, plus threat to suspend my contractor's license. Through my kitchen window, I see Miranda and hers, arms crossed, grinning like she won the lottery. But I wasn't giving up. Not after all this. Her next move? An emergency special assessment, $5,000 per household for urgent community improvements. Road repairs, landscaping, security. Looked official until you saw the fine print. Board members' LLC-owned homes were exempt. Funny how Miranda and her crew wouldn't pay a dime of their own legal bills. Here's where being an electrician pays off. We follow wires, chase loose connections. I spent 3 days in the county recorder's office pulling every scrap of paper on Willowbrook Estates. I discovered the original HOA was incorporated in 1987 with a 20-year term, expired in 2007. 16 years, nobody bothered to renew it. Miranda had been collecting illegal fees, threatening foreclosure, and writing fines with all the authority of a lemonade stand. I photocopied everything, stored it in my safe, sent copies to my cousin, a lawyer in Oklahoma City. Those violation letters weren't just bullying, they were signed evidence of fraud. Did Miranda quit? Not even close. She lawyered up, Peton Klein and Associates, 60 pages claiming I owed over $60,000. Tried to place a lien on my house. Would have worked on someone who didn't know their HOA had been legally dead for over a decade. That night, someone slashed my truck tires, couldn't even limp to the shop. Next morning, flyers showed up, neighborhood property values at risk. One bad apple spoils the bunch. My mailbox? Spray painted move out in red. You ever see a pattern forming? Me too. Then my buddy Jake, another electrician, calls, says he'd seen this exact scheme in Broken Arrow. Same law firm, same playbook, same outcome. The HOA president ended up behind bars. Suddenly, all the little pieces clicked. Miranda thought she was playing chess, and I was playing checkers. She was about to find out I'd been playing chess all along. But nothing, and I mean nothing, cut as deep as what happened next. Miranda dug up the fact that, by Oklahoma law, my late wife Sarah technically still owned 40% of our house. She found Sarah's estranged sister Rebecca, convinced her to claim a share, and called my wife's memory an inconvenient legal complication in a filing. I'm not ashamed to say I nearly broke down. But that's when grief turned into pure rage. I lived in the Tulsa County Law Library that weekend, digging up dirt on her lawyers. Turns out, Peton Klein had 3 reprimands for manufacturing property disputes, a bar complaint for prolonged harassment, and malpractice suits. But the jackpot was in the insurance audit. The HOA's policy didn't cover legal action without proper authorization, which they never had. That meant every dime of Miranda's lawsuits? The board was personally liable. Hundreds of thousands and counting. Miranda's sabotage ramped up, calls to the electric company about gas leaks, fake police reports about me disturbing the peace, even fake complaints to the VA about my disability. The local paper ran a story calling me a dangerous contractor. And then, her son and his friends broke into my workshop, trashed my tools. Police called it a prank. That's when I knew, if I wanted real justice, I'd have to bring the big guns. The twist came courtesy of Jake again. Turns out, Miranda's scam wasn't unique. There was a whole network, with over 20 homeowners like me, across several subdivisions. The same shell company, Willowbrook Property Solutions, was set to buy my house at foreclosure. Her husband, who worked at First National Bank, the same bank handling my case, was tangled in insider trading, a straight-up federal crime. I spent the next week pulling public records, phone logs, bank transfers, matching violation letter templates, the works. With every document, Miranda was building my case for me. Every letter, every check, every signature in her blood-red ink, evidence of conspiracy, mail fraud, and racketeering. My team grew, Jake for the legwork, Betty Chen, retired paralegal and the angriest woman alive at HOA abuse, a TV reporter named Marcus Williams, and Detective Tom Bradley, who knew how to make a federal case stick. Our war room was my kitchen, buried in coffee and legal pads. Betty handled research, Marcus prepared the media, Tom coordinated with the feds. And Betty? She found Miranda never even passed the Oklahoma bar, 8 years of practicing law illegally. Every letter she'd sent was now a felony. We documented everything. Patterns are proof in court, every victim, every shady deal. The plan was simple. Let the foreclosure auction go forward, gather the last bit of evidence, then drop the hammer. As the day approached, Miranda spun out. She hacked my email, filed a restraining order, even planted drugs in my truck. Thank God for Jake, who caught it first. Meanwhile, the insurance company realized they'd been defrauded, dropped the HOA, and demanded $800,000 in reimbursement. 2 board members resigned and got their own lawyers, finally realizing they'd been conned. The FBI came calling. The IRS opened a tax case, over $1 million in unreported profit, and her assets were frozen. Her husband lost his job. The dominoes were falling fast. The night before the auction, I sat in my workshop, radio on, coffee in hand, prepping the last binders. The next morning, Miranda would show up expecting to take my house for pennies. Instead, she'd walk into a firing squad of evidence. And man, was it beautiful. Auction day, news trucks outside, neighbors gathered, feds on standby. Miranda had already paraded buyers through my front yard. This neighborhood has standards and we enforce them, I heard her brag. She tried to bribe the county clerk to lose paperwork, except the clerk had been recording everything for 3 years, thanks to a previous scandal. The moment came. Marcus aired our story on TV. Phone lines blew up with more victims. The IRS froze Miranda's assets. Emergency HOA meeting. She's voted out. Betty's in. All my fines erased. The foreclosure canceled. Meanwhile, police caught Miranda shredding documents, another felony. Then came the courtroom. Commissioner Martinez presided, house packed with angry homeowners. I laid out the evidence, timeline charts, audio recordings, financial records, demographic stats showing Miranda targeted widows and the disabled. Miranda showed up late, looking like she hadn't slept in days, and couldn't keep her mouth shut. She stood up and ranted, called us undesirables, and on camera, admitted the fraud was about profit. That's when Detective Bradley cuffed her right there in front of everyone. Miranda Ashworth, you're under arrest for mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, bribery, and unauthorized practice of law. Cameras flashed, neighbors cheered, and I felt, finally, like justice had shown up. 18 months later, I'm still standing in the same driveway. Miranda's house is now the community center. The kids play on swings we built with the restitution money. Miranda got 8 years in prison. Her law firm lost its license. Her husband banned from banking forever. 23 families were made whole. Oklahoma passed new laws protecting homeowners, named the Homeowner Protection Act after our case. Anna, a widow I met through all this, is now my fiancée, and we're building a second house together. Some of the same folks who once crossed the street now bring over pie. And that's how the HOA that tried to ruin me ended up ruined themselves. The crunch of gravel under my boots sounds different these days, confident, steady home. My truck sits out front where it belongs. Every morning, I thank Sarah for the stubbornness she left me. So, have you ever gone toe-to-toe with a bully in a suit? Share your HOA nightmares below. Let's get your story out there. And remember, documentation beats intimidation, truth beats money, and sometimes the best revenge is just living well in the house they tried to steal. Stick around for next week. I'll tell you how a city councilman tried to yank my business license, and how that backfired even worse. See you then.